You're listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. Each week, your host, Polly Requa, interviews veterinarians and individuals in the pet industry from across the nation answering pet questions. Bark and Wag podcast is produced weekly for your enjoyment, and show notes can be found at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. That's BARKNWAG.com. Please remember to subscribe to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk.
Thank you for listening to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk. Bark and Wag is dedicated to protecting our dogs through advocacy, education, and supporting like-minded dog lovers by selling custom pet products. Bark and Wag is excited to announce our new partnership with a Colorado hemp farm to produce a line of CBD products for your pets. Bark and Wag has CBD pet tincture available in 300, 750, 1200, and 2400 milligrams. Bark and Wag CBD is pet safe, no THC, it's made in the USA, and is CO2 extracted. Please check out Bark and Wag's website, barkandwag.com. That is BARK, to see our line of CBD and awesome merchandise. We love pooch ideas for podcasts and merchandise, so anytime send an email to Polly at barkandwag.com with your suggestions.
Welcome to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk. I'm your host, Polly Requa. Today we're talking to Shelby, Executive Director of the Texas Humane Legislation Network. Welcome, Shelby.
Hi there. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for coming back on the podcast. I wanted to, after our last conversation, we kind of touched on breeders, and I think this is a really hot topic and wanted to have you back on.
Thank you so much. It is a hot topic, and given the sheltering crisis that Texas has right now, it couldn't be more timely.
So what is going on?
So right now, THLN is in the middle of a legislative session, and Texas meets every 2 years to pass laws. And although we love trying to pass laws at the federal government level, it's incredibly difficult. So we have found a ton of success in going to our state capitol every 2 years and passing humane animal protection laws. We've recently discussed the Safe Outdoor Dogs Act that took us 6 years to pass, and other laws, for example, strengthening the animal cruelty law here in Texas. But this session, our focus is on breeders and getting more breeders to come into the licensed breeder program in Texas.
And what can the listeners do?
Sure. I'm happy to explain the problem and why we need their help. So everybody always asks, well, why can't you outlaw a puppy mill? And you can't. It's a business that is happening. If there is cruelty happening there, you definitely can do a seizure, seize the animals. And if it meets the definition of animal cruelty, then you can go ahead and try to put the owners away criminally. But at the end of the day, the next best thing to outlawing puppy mills is to regulate them. And so currently in the state of Texas, we have something called the Texas Licensed Breeder Program. And you have to apply for, you send in an application, and then there is a pre-inspection before they give you a license. There is a nominal fee given the expense of puppies that are being sold, purebred puppies. And then they can inspect you in the future, and you have to come back every 18 months and get a new license. Well, the definition, unfortunately, is really missing a ton of breeders. So in the state of Texas, to come into this program, you have to have 11 breeding females, and you have to sell 20 puppies a year. So our bill would strike the number 11 and move it to 5, and then say you do not need to prove that you're selling any puppies. All you have to have is 5 breeding females. And we think that's fair because we're not trying to go after, conformation dogs or show dogs or hobby breeders. But 11 is way too many breeding females, and still people aren't coming under the law.
So how do you manage this?
So the program is managed under the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. And we're actually really proud of the program. It usually has right around 200 breeders, and they have to get licensed and they have to have inspections. And what we found is since the program started, within 3 years, there were over 400 complaints against unlicensed breeders. So what we found is that the licensed breeders actually like being licensed because then they can charge more for their dogs. They like that kind of gold standard. But these other individuals that are not licensed, they are just throwing up, they're thumbing their nose at the law, and they're the ones that we have to get to come into the program.
So why are unlicensed breeders problematic?
Well, Polly, here's the problem. Unlicensed breeders typically are backyard breeders, and the conditions for these animals are incredibly inhumane. You will have piles of feces. You will have dogs that will have never gotten outside their cages. They have deformities that are within the genes, and they are terribly bred. And imagine 400 dogs in one location and only having 1 to 2 people caring for these animals. And so we need to get these individuals to come into the licensing breeding program so that they get inspected and that they understand the importance of what they're doing. What we tell our supporters is if you want to go get a Great Dane, a Golden Retriever, a purebred dog, look to your local breed clubs because they will be selling litters and they actually care about the breed. They want you to meet the parents of the puppy, and that is something that you should definitely do. It's one of the signs of a responsible breeder. Again, we always tell you, adopt, don't shop. But if you truly have your heart set on a purebred dog, that's okay. But do your research and make sure that you are going to a responsible breeder. I've had so many people tell me, well, I know that I got a great dog from a responsible breeder. And I'll say, oh, tell me, where'd you get your dog from? And they tell me, and I say, actually, I can tell you based on the information I have that breeder has over 400 dogs. And they'll say, that's impossible. Well, how do you know? Well, where'd you get your dog? Oh, I met her in a parking lot. Exactly.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
So it's people that don't allow you to go on the premises. You can't meet the mom or dad. And we're trying to warn people to stay away from them because all they care about, Polly, is profit over the welfare of the dogs that are in their care.
Right. Oh my gosh. I wonder what the laws in Colorado are like for the breeders. I don't think we have great laws here.
It's very difficult to get an animal protection law for dogs that are in large scale breeding facilities because not only are the breeders against any kind of legislation, but you wouldn't believe this, the American Kennel Club has come out against our bill very hard.
Why?
Because the American Kennel Club is built on how many puppies you can get registered. The more puppies that you get registered, the more fees that are associated with them. And I want to tell your listeners this. Would you believe that the American Kennel Club in 2017 came against a bill to ban bestiality in the state of Texas?
Oh my God.
Exactly. So they oppose all, at least in my opinion, what I've seen, they oppose any legislation protecting animals in the state of Texas.
Wow, that needs to get out.
It's very, very frustrating because, again, they claim that they are protecting the hobby breeders, and the hobby breeders are exempt from our bill. So what's their problem? What are they hiding, right?
Yeah, right. Wow. Well, it's all about money. I mean, all this stuff is coming to a light. I feel like COVID ripped a Band-Aid off of a lot of things, you know? So anyway, that's a shame because I wonder if like an association like the veterinarian or, some type of organization like that would get behind your organization to help drive how important this is for animal welfare?
Well, we think that currently the Veterinarian Association in Texas is neutral on our breeding bill, but we would hope that they at some point support it, because it would just mean more work for the veterinarians because they would have more clients to see, right?
Right. Okay. Well, this is a great topic. How do people if they want to find out more about what you're doing, how do they get a hold of you?
Please go to thln.org and hit the join button. It is free. We do not spam or sell your information. I only have 2 employees, and we run on our volunteers. But if you sign up for our action alerts, you will get notifications when a bill is coming up and what to do in order to support that bill.
Well, thanks for being on the podcast, and we look forward to having you back.
Thank you so much, Polly. And if I can, thank you to all your listeners who adopt, who foster, who rescue animals from shelters, and also who are responsible pet owners because they spay and neuter their pets.
Yes, I thank the listeners as well. So thanks again, and we look forward to having you back.
Okay, thank you so much, Polly.
Thank you for listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our web address, www.barkandwag.com, to your friends and other pet owners. Have a pressing question for a veterinarian? Ask your question at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. This has been a KFR production. Join us next time for another edition of Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk.